Welcome to BRITE Connections, everybody. Thank you for watching tonight. BRITE Connections is an interactive monthly series designed to bring together our community's youth with our community's supportive adult members. I am Victoria Sayeg, Director of Performing Arts and Project Coordinator for BRITE. For those of you new to BRITE, we are a nonprofit based out of Ventura, California, focused on promoting mental health and well-being through performance and the arts. Our mission is to support youth between the ages of 12 and 25 by helping to amplify their voices around issues that they care about. BRITE is made possible through funding from Ventura County Behavioral Health Department, Substance Use Services and Prevention. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I do look forward to spending the hour with you all. Tonight's interactive discussion will be around expressions of gender, what it means to break down gender stereotypes in a heteronormative society. Tonight, we will also be fielding live questions from you all. So if you're watching and able and curious and thoughtful, we encourage you to ask questions and comment right here on this live video. As a general rule, the sooner you get those questions in, the better, but we will be fielding questions the whole hour. To kick off our discussion, we'll first listen to an amazing piece of poetry by Remy and Alex's interpretation of the poem's energy that will play on the harp. We invite you, if you wish, to grab a pen and paper or a journal should you feel inspired, and I think you might. So let me introduce you to our two performers and panelists. Remy is a freshman at Ventura High School. In her free time, she enjoys reading, writing, and acting. She most recently performed in Ventura High School's production of Zoom Done It, a melodramatic murder mystery. She is an advocate for equality and an active member of the GSA at BRITE. Alex is an improvisational harpist, empowerment mentor, and poet based in Louisville, Colorado. Alex brings compassion, listening, and interdisciplinary perspectives into mental health settings along with their music. Alex currently works at the Infinite You, an organization serving neurodiverse teens, and Camp Wapi Yapi, developing an online summer camp serving children facing cancer and supporting their siblings as well. Friends, now please enjoy Stereotypes by Remy Ruiz and Alex Bernal.
Stereotypes. All of my life, I have worn dresses to any fancy event. I have been told how I sit isn't ladylike. All of my life, I have tried to fit into the gender stereotypes of our society. One day, I decided to stop. In third grade, I finally realized how uncomfortable I felt in a dress. I now try to wear clothes that make me feel comfortable. I reject the color pink because it reminds me that for some strange reason, colors are gendered. I now sit however I want and go out of my way to make sure it's not ladylike. I now do whatever I can to make sure I don't fit in a box that a gender stereotype put me in. may not always stay outside of the box, I try my best. With how much our society has grown, I hope that someday a boy will wear pink and everyone will be okay with it. I hope that someday a little girl will never be told that she can't do something just because she's a girl. Now think about it. Are gender stereotypes really that important?
That was gorgeous. Everyone, let's show some love for Alex and Remy. That was really beautiful. I was also like listening to the rain out the window. That was a really amazing experience. Thank you. So now is the other cool part of BRITE Connections. I like to think of it as like an intersection of art and science. So we heard the amazing and powerful art that just happened. And now it's time to bring the science aspect. So we're gonna bring in professionals in different industries. So Alex will be joining our discussion as a professional in their industry, and Remy will be joining as a future star in whatever field she finds herself. So it's time that I introduce you to the other three people on our panel. Jessica Mon is an associate marriage and family therapist who has worked with children, teens, young adults, and families. Jessica is an individual and family therapist at Muirwood Adolescent and Family Services. Jessica currently supports adolescents in a dual diagnosis residential setting, providing therapeutic intervention to teens and their families. I want you to meet Megan Goebel. After nearly 10 years at Amgen, Megan left the company to become an advocate for LGBTQ plus youth. Megan is a mother of two girls ages 10 and 6. Her youngest transitioned just before turning 5. In an effort to pave the path, Megan began advocating for all LGBTQ plus students within the Conejo Valley Unified School District by forming Unity Conejo, a grassroots committee advocating for equality. Steve Roach. Steve Roach is a 5th grade teacher in Moorpark, California, whose belief that students deserve a safe place to learn and grow is the foundation of the culture within his classroom. He currently teaches his students synchronously in person and via video conference simultaneously, and enjoys finding innovative ways to meet today's unprecedented challenges through project-based learning. So, hey everybody, I'm going to switch over my screen so I can see all you. Hi. So as I know we're having a tech issue with the comments, but I want to get our conversations started. And to me, it makes sense to start at the beginning, to start at square one, to start with you, Remy. I want to know, why did you write this poem? What was going on in you? What were you thinking, feeling? What inspired this?
This poem started as a sort of assignment from the GSA here at BRITE. We were working on doing PSAs about gender stereotypes, and I always found PSAs to be almost fueled out of fear, and I didn't want that. I wanted something that people could relate to. So I sat down and wrote this poem in probably under 5 minutes. I've been writing poetry for a while just as something to help me process my emotions and get them out. And writing this, I was just reflecting on the things that have happened in my life and how I have experienced gender stereotypes throughout my whole life. And you can, in a few of the lines, are mentions of memories that I've had throughout my life.
Thank you, Remy. Of course, you're a poet. You're so eloquent and well spoken. That was awesome. It makes me think, though. So that was your process, and that's what you put down on the table. And then the next step in creating this piece was Alex and Alex's hearing of the piece. So I would like to turn it over to you, Alex, and ask this question of, tell me about when you heard it. Tell me about the moment you sat with the piece, read it, and your process.
Mm. First off, I was honored. I have just newly been introduced to the BRITE community, and in some of the first conversations with sharing that I was a harpist, with sharing my own story, which I'll be honored to share bits more of through tonight, I I was given the chance to listen and read Remy's poem, and it's really an honor to get to be someone who has had their own healing journey stemming from just everybody has their own challenges in life, and for me to get to step into a role where I can empower a young voice, where I can make my harp a frame to boost up somebody's courage and give them the chance to speak and feel really loved and affirmed in who they are and how they exist in the world. It's a privilege. It's an honor.
Thank you. And thank you for adding your talents and
Mm.
your story and your passion and your pain and your love to tonight. It's coming together so brilliantly. And as you said, it's an honor to just witness this process too. So you guys should see, I'm looking on my side computer and seeing the fact that our comments are not working. So I'm getting some emails, and the emails coming in are questions for, I think, kind of everyone. This first question is for Jessica. Jessica, it says the comments are working now. Okay, great. Jessica, it says, as an LMFT, how do you promote an all-inclusive space for LGBTQ youth? How do you promote an all-inclusive space?
That's a great question. I think that everyone just needs to find themselves in their space. And so if you walk into a room and you see something you identify, you most definitely start feeling safe, right? So flags or books or magazines or things like that are really important pieces to have in your home or in doctor's offices or any other space, just to help people feel included and identify with the space that they're going into.
I love it. I love how you're adding a visual, like seeing the flags and seeing that visual element. I think you're right. That's so important. Thank you for that. Can anyone else talk about how to make an inclusive space? I think maybe Steve, that might be a question for you in the classroom. How do you create an inclusive space?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jessica. I mean, creating an environment where students walk in and they immediately can relate to things that they're seeing in the classroom, whether they're certain books or posters that you have up on the wall. I mean, I mean, and that's just visually. I mean, I think outside of that, I mean, we could talk about this more, I'm sure, later, but just creating having a safe space, right? Just a safe space where everybody feels comfortable, and there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, it's everything from just having a very specific, I mean, in a classroom, a very specific set of rules that are just really easy to understand. I mean, I teach fifth grade, so you can't get too complicated with the rules and stuff like that. A lot of the times it's, raise your hand for permission to speak, those kinds of things. But by having those rules, kids understand what is expected of them, and they can feel safe because of it. If someone's breaking a rule and I you know, and I call them out on it. Hey, you know, you're breaking this rule. You know, the students will feel comfortable that way, if that makes sense. Also, just kind of, at least for me, just as sort of as the teacher, being vulnerable and just being being someone that students can relate to, showing that look, like, I mean, oh my gosh, we read this, there's this book Wonder, it's really popular now, they made a movie out of it and stuff, and there's this part where the dog dies, right? The dog dies, and every single time, spoiler alert, the dog dies. And every single time the dog dies, I start crying. I mean, I'm just sitting there, I'm just like, it got to the point where eventually I just have other students read it for me now. I can't handle the dog dying anymore. And, you know, and just being okay, you know, just like, you know, here's your grown teacher crying like a little baby because the dog died. And that's, you know, and that's all right. And, you know, and having those kinds of vulnerabilities and showing that, you know, you're a multifaceted individual, as well as, you know, your students, they, you know, they'll pick up and they'll say, hey, I get this guy. I understand where he's coming from. And then they'll open up a little bit more. And I mean, and again, it's all about creating that safe space. And when students feel safe, they'll feel more included in the classroom.
Cool. So you're setting a tone and you're showing them what's okay to do. And I appreciate you so much that somehow you worked into that a dog dying. I do appreciate that.
Not on purpose.
I appreciate that about you, Steve. I see Megan on our panel would like to chime in. Megan.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was just going to add, as far as being inclusive in the classroom, especially right now with distance learning and everybody doing things from remote and, you know, or at least primarily. One really great way that I have found that our teachers and staff can really support our LGBTQ youth is just the simple adding of your pronouns, your personal pronouns, to your Zoom handle, to your name. So when you come into the classroom each day, obviously online, you know, seeing just personal pronouns kind of gives that notice to those students that, hey, this is somebody that I think I can talk to, because they know obviously about pronouns. So it gives them kind of that lead in to have that conversation.
That's a great tip. That's like a piece of knowledge that I can take with me. That's really important. Thank you for saying that. We have some comments I'm seeing now. Ashley is asking a question. Ashley is asking, have you experienced gender stereotypes in school and extracurriculars? And that's for Remy. So Remy, how have you experienced gender stereotypes in school and extracurriculars? And then it also says, thank you so much for putting your beautiful poem into the universe.
Well, you're welcome for the poem, but especially in elementary school, I feel that I dealt with a lot of gender stereotypes because I was a competitive gymnast for years. So I was training all the time and I was strong. I was very strong. And so when I was younger, like a teacher would ask for the boys to help move something because it was heavy. And I would go to try to do it. And I would be told, no, you can't do it. You're a girl, you can't do it. You're not strong enough. Though I was strong. I was a competitive gymnast. And then it's just the different, it happened to me not even throughout, even in middle school, it happened. And in extracurriculars, I was also a competitive dancer, and you see the majority of the dancers are female. You rarely get male students, and there's always that assumption that, oh, you're a male dancer, oh, you are part of the LGBTQ community, but that's not always the case.
I wish everyone was as smart as you. Thank you. Does anybody? I have a question coming from Jessica Teeters. The question, I believe, if I'm wrong, I can't see what you all are saying. I think it says, Jessica, what are some of the negative effects of denying one's gender identity or sexuality?
The word that really, why is my Zoom being red? The word that really sticks out for me with that question is denying. And I think denying anything is just teaching them that what they're thinking and feeling isn't adequate or real, and that they need to question everything about themselves. So first of all, the negative piece is that you're teaching someone to second guess how they feel and who they are, which I don't think is appropriate. But obviously, if that's just because of your own insecurities or your own like you're just unsure of how to address it, then just ask questions, seek to understand, and just don't assume. Just ask, because maybe you're helping them explore their understanding as well.
Thank you, Jessica. I see Megan nodding her head over there. Megan, did you have something to add to that? Or are you just like, yes?
No, I'm 100% just nodding with everything that Jessica is saying, because it's so true. You know, just being affirmative, and the question asking is, you know, as long as you're coming from the right place, you know, it's okay to make mistakes. I know for a very long time, you know, when my daughter first transitioned, it was the getting those pronouns right, and you know, just as a parent, you know, saying, I'm really sorry, I made a mistake, let me fix that, I will do better next time. And so just as long as they know that you're coming from the right place and you're not doing it in a way to be derogatory or mean, it's very easy to move forward and just affirm who they are.
Thank you. Your insight is so important to this conversation, having lived experience, and how you responded to it is heroic and iconic, frankly. So thank you. Thank you for being you. I'm seeing a question come in for Alex. It says, Alex, I really enjoyed your harp playing. This is from Jessica Mendoza. Can I ask, what were your first experiences of entering LGBTQ plus community spaces like? So what was it like first entering LGBTQ plus spaces?
Thank you. I feel like it's important for me to give the context that while I'm someone who has expressed differently throughout my life, embracing it myself has been a relatively new development in my adult life, where from young ages I'd play with dolls until getting bullied out of it, and I started bullying myself out of it, and I wanted to wear dresses until getting talked out of it, and I talked myself out of it. And I started getting little hints of people like me existing through high school and college. But it was very interesting that I really needed a specific space that was welcoming of people who were, the terms would be closeted and questioning, someone who had parts of themselves that were really concealed and knew that there was more. But I felt like there was a lot of trauma in queer spaces around people who looked like I looked when I was essentially concealing myself. And it was very vulnerable to be both in a position of really feeling that anger and a pushback to me being at all a part of an LGBTQ accepting space when I was closeted. And then as I started coming out, how that remained a major barrier to me feeling emotionally safe. And I really had to have somebody just embrace me and make it okay to not know, make it okay to be me and be whatever that was. And my hero in that was beautiful non-binary being named Angus, who really just welcomed me in and wrapped me up in a purple feather boa at a very small little gathering. And I started sobbing, like part of myself that had always been there, but had always been a little bit shunned, not intentionally, but never been really fully allowed to land and be celebrated, was existing for the first time. It was humbling, and that was really, really powerful for me and transformative to get to have in my adult life, part of me born for the first time, publicly, socially, interpersonally. Yeah.
I literally just got sucked into every word you were saying that I forgot I was working and had a job and I'm on a computer. Like I was so in with what you were saying. Thank you. I something that resonated with me is that like compassion and empathy create healing and moving forward and unity. And that's so important to hear. Even though we all maybe know it, it's so important how you vocalized it. Thank you. In me forgetting that I have a job and I'm doing anything, I'm seeing some comments come in on the side. This one's from Vanessa Alva. Vanessa's question is for Megan. It says, Megan, what advice would you give to other parents that have children that are questioning their gender expression or identity?
It's a great question. Thank you. So there's a couple of things that I would do and things that I did myself as a parent. I allowed my child to just express who they were, and how my now daughter expressed herself was through her clothing and how she wore things. At a very, very young age, at the age of 2, she would carry around purses and have her fingernails painted and wanted to wear dresses and headbands. And, at the time, it was more of just, we thought because she had a big sister, she had someone that would influence her. And as time went on, we actually found that that was not the case, and that was, just her having early access that maybe if she hadn't had an older brother instead. And just be affirming, just talk with them, communicate with them, keep the line of communication open, even if they're so young that they can't verbally express themselves. The way that their mannerisms are and what they do, just allow them the space to be who they are. And eventually over time, if you create that trust and that open space, they will come to you and talk to you and feel comfortable and safe to ask you questions. Unfortunately, in this day and age, if you don't do that and they have some sort of access to the big scary dark web, that's where they'll go. I've met a lot of students and talked to a lot of people that said that's how they found out who they were, what their identity was. And I think that us as parents have a responsibility to our kids to raise them in the most loving, accepting, compassionate environment that we possibly can. So just be your child's advocate and read and learn for yourself. And most importantly, just listen and be affirming and accepting for them.
Thank you. It's happening again. I'm just getting caught in everything everybody's saying. It's all so great. I feel like that's a big question. I would like to open it up to our panelists if anybody has anything to add to that. Okay. We have another question in from Jessica, and that's for Steve. This question is, Steve, how can teachers differentiate between gender stereotypical ability and individual ability? And then Jessica says, I love that we're having this conversation.
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, I try not to really even consider gender at all when I'm working. I'm always thinking about the individual, right? And let me give you an example. There's something that that you see a lot of teachers use. They call them equity sticks, though probably more appropriate to call them equality sticks. But this idea that you want to be able to give everybody an opportunity to speak. You don't want to get caught in, calling on the same student over and over again. Just by the way, boys tend to raise their hands more than girls. Fun fact. And so you have these equality sticks or these equity sticks, and the problem with them is that they're you may pull out the name of a kid who isn't going to be able to answer like a question that you might like pose, right? So if I ask a kid who doesn't know his math facts a question about, dividing with 2-digit divisors that have a decimal in them, they're just gonna walk away just feeling like garbage after they answer that question, right? And so you have to just really know who your students are and know who the individuals are, and by knowing each student individually, you're not going to fall into those gender stereotype traps that you might typically. Also, just kind of planning ahead. I mean, that's really another big part of it. You know, just knowing, hey, this is what I'm doing today, and just, you know, really working your way through it, saying, all right, well, I'm going to be, you know, having students line up to go to, I don't know, recess or something like that. I don't do that. I'm just throwing out an example, I guess. I'm not going to say, okay, boys go line up first, girls go line up next. You know, you don't want to, don't put students in a situation where you are causing them to maybe feel uncomfortable or not included, you know, in those scenarios. Also, I think also just thinking about the language, right? Like thinking about the language that you're using. And I think I'm going a little off topic on the question here, but I'm just kind of rolling with it. You know, like when I greet my students in the morning, you know, I used to, I think a lot of people do this. I mean, I probably still do it every once in a while. I'm like, oh, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's just something that we're, you know, I don't know, I'm used to doing these kinds of things. In more recent years, you know, I'm saying, good morning, Earthlings, or, you know, just something like that. And, you know, they get a kick out of it. And I'm not stereotyping or you know, I'm not making someone feel not being included in the classroom that way.
I liked that you went off track. It was important to hear. I also make the mistakes that you were describing just because it's something that's ingrained in our culture and in our media from when we were kids, right? When we were young, we heard people say it who heard people say it. But I like that we're dropping the beat and we're talking about it and we're making corrections. Yes, and I see some movement.
And you know, and let me just say this too about mistakes. Is I think Megan, you had mentioned this earlier. Just, you know, making mistakes and just being okay with making mistakes. At the very beginning of every school year, you know, there's always like the first kid who makes a mistake, and everybody's like looking at them saying, you know, look at this guy or something like that. And I'll say, I make mistakes all day long. I make the same mistake every single day. My wife tells me, just put the dishes in the dishwasher. Why are you putting them in the sink? This is ridiculous. And I look at them and say, hey, you know, let them soak in the sink. And you know, this is of course just nonsense, but I constantly do it, and it's not on purpose. I forget to do it. And you know, and I think that the kids, you know, when they feel like it's okay for them to make mistakes, you're not always, you know, and it gets back to, like, you know, having the safe classroom environment and all that. It being okay to make mistakes and talking about things and just really setting that tone that you know, it just makes you human. It makes you a person, and you grow and you learn, and then you'll probably make the same mistake again. And that's okay, because, you know, you hope that you want to foster you know, that kind of thinking, that making a mistake doesn't make you stupid or, you know, or incapable of something. It just makes you a person.
Oh, I have something to say. Oh, that was fast. Okay, I have something to say. I've been listening to everyone and like making comments to myself, to each of you. First, I want a purple boa to be wrapped around me, Alex. So if you could send that my way, that would be great. And a mom like Megan, all of it. But something that Steve said about the classroom is noticing how you're addressing your kids or your clients. Like, oh my God, I love your dress. It's so beautiful. And then when you see a student that identifies as male, then saying like, oh, nice shoes, or like, oh, I bet you run really fast in those shoes, and noticing how you're stereotyping these kids because you're doing it based on your own experiences of these things. So try and be as neutral as you possibly can so that they can express themselves however they can. That's all.
That's not all. That's amazing. That's very insightful.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Oh, Remy, what's going on over there?
I just wanted to ask, Steve, you mentioned like with like questions and how one gender raises their hand more. What would your advice be with doing school? Because my school is doing school completely through online. So what would your advice for teachers be to try to include, to try to not stereotype the students and try to get more input from not just those 3 students that usually answer the questions.
Yeah, you know, again, it kind of gets back to the individual, right? I mean, if I know that I have, it is hard. I mean, it's harder. I mean, we started off the school year completely at a distance, and we just over. Oh my gosh, I guess it feels like months ago now. We kind of started. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna say it incorrectly. Synchronously. And learning that way. But in the beginning when we were doing this, it was difficult because it's harder to know your students that way, right? I'm not going to know who are my introverts, who are my extroverts, who are going to, who has the answer, but they're just not raising their hand, and they're not there. And truth be told, I think that it was a little messy in the beginning, but now it's kind of like, all right, once you know who your students are as a teacher, if I see that, if I know that someone has an answer to something, and you might just call on them. I mean, my students know well enough by now. Don't even bother raising your hand. I'm just going to call on you. I mean, it's just and you never know. You never know. But the thing is I'm not going to call on students to pick on them. I'm not going to say, oh, I bet Timmy doesn't look like he's paying attention. It looks like he's playing Fortnite, so I'm going to call on him and embarrass him in front of all of the other students in the class or anything. It's I'm going to say, all right, well, I think I've got a really good question, and I think my man John over here, he's got this, and so I'm going to ask him this question, and my advice to because not every student's going to raise their hand. I mean, most of the time, especially by the time you get to 5th grade, you're going to have like 2 students raising their hand. It's going to be the same 2 students over and over and over again. So you just get to know your students, and again, planning, thinking ahead of time, saying, okay, I know that this is going to be a good question for me to ask this student. And I might even tell that student, Remy, I might even say to them, hey, you're going to get this question today, so be ready for that question. And actually, you find that the students appreciate that, right? This is a great way to make them feel more confident in answering those questions, or even with something like, I teach elementary school, so it's like, hey, we're going to be reading this story today. When we get to that 4th paragraph, be on your game there, because you're going to get called on. But I'm going to, again, plan ahead of time. This is a good paragraph for Johnny. I don't know why this is like my go-to name. I have no students named Johnny. I don't think I've ever had a kid named John in my class. But it's but this is these kinds of things. I'm sorry, this is a very long answer to what should have been a simple one. But I hope that answered your question, kind of.
I think it did. And I also love the energy that exists in you, Steve. I'm like over here laughing on mute, but also it's real and it's important and it's valuable. I see Alex. Alex, what's going on?
I also feel like I'd love to respond to Remy's question, not specifically in a school setting, but I feel like it can apply to school too. That people are, in my experience, much easier to stereotype at a distance than when you know them. And there's a lot of importance in building rapport and letting yourself meet people closely enough to let them have the nuances that come with familiarity. And it's a lot easier to guess somebody into a box when there's an extra gap, like a screen, or physical distance, or political distance, or somebody having a gender identity that you've never been exposed to, or somebody using a pronoun that you've never learned how to use. Those levels, I'm catching myself saying and being vulnerable and tender here. It gets really easy to guess somebody out of existence, to stereotype somebody out of existence, to classify somebody into a box you expect when they're sort of an abstract stranger. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of curiosity and a lot of listening and a lot of understanding that you don't know anything about a person. When you first meet them, everybody is somebody who's completely different than every other human being who's ever existed. And each person has something to teach you that no one else could ever teach you. And holy cow, what a thing to miss out on if you don't take the time to know them as this unique, beautiful person that has this one chance of expressing something the universe has put into a beautiful instance of a human being. It's really important to get to know people. So that's my response there, little 2 cents.
A lot more than 2 cents. Thank you. I have a question coming up over here from Sean. The last name might look familiar. He is my husband. He is downstairs. Sean's asking, how important is it to see representation in the media? What a good question. I swear I did not ask him to say that. How important is it to see representation in the media? It's not to any specific panelist. Somebody want to jump in? Jessica.
I think
Jump in. I think it's really important. I think especially in homes where it's not safe to express yourself, if you notice on TV while your parents are watching TV that people identify or expressing themselves in similar ways that you want to, it makes it okay, because the conversation might not be safe or okay in your home, but if you're seeing it in schools and if you're seeing it on the media or in shows or on the news, even, like, that instantly shows you that maybe outside of the four walls you live in, you'll have an opportunity to be who you are and to live an honest life. Yeah.
Also, I mean, there's the other side of that is, I mean, accurate representation in the media, right? Because there's also, I mean, there's also the danger of just everything media, right? One of the interesting things about teaching 5th grade is that, you have all of these kids, hitting puberty, and suddenly you have, I mean, one of the most shocking things about when I first started teaching 5th was how many students have like phones and Instagrams, and they're tweeting and they're TikToking, and I'm just sitting there going, they're 11 years old. And I mean, and maybe that, and this is typical now. I mean, it's very typical. And so, not everyone, when you're on Instagram, for example, let's say, a person's life, like their real life, isn't accurately reflected through their Instagram. It might be sometimes. I mean, every once in a while you do like these very raw, real Instagram accounts, and I'm sure that they exist and they're out there. But I mean, for the most part, that's not what you're getting. You're getting what the person whose Instagram account is wants you to see, right? And so it's I go on my Instagram account. I'm sure my life looks very charming, but I'm running after like a toddler and like trying to get them ready for bed, and doing all the trying to wear 17 different hats at the same time. But on my Instagram, it looks like I'm going on vacation in Amsterdam and going in gondola rides or whatever. And this is a fraction of my life I let you see. I talk to my students too about, just because we do a lot of art in my classroom, and they're like, oh my gosh, Mr. Roach, all your art looks so cool and blah blah blah. And I'm like, it's because you're looking at all the stuff that I'm used to like drawing and making for you guys. And when Michelangelo had I'm sure he had some garbage art too, right? You don't see it. This isn't what he's like selling to people. This isn't what he's getting paid to do. So just being wary that not everything that you see portrayed in the media is an accurate representation of what life is actually like.
Thank you. And also, the next question I'm seeing, my screen. Okay, the next question I'm seeing is for Megan. It says, Megan, what advice would you give to other parents that have children that are questioning their gender expression or identity? Sorry if I went out of order, Mitch.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've had this question. I'm happy to kind of feed a little bit more into that. Again, just there, I think something I had forgotten to say before that I want to make sure that I put out there is that every single experience is different. So regardless of where you're at in your life, you know, my life is different than probably every person on this Zoom call's life is different. And therefore my 6-year-old's experience is going to be very different from another 6-year-old's experience, or, you know, of that same journey. And so, you know, trying to say when someone asks me, you know, what do I do? How do I know? You know your child better than I know your child, or you know that person that's in your life better than I do. And so just again, you know, making sure that you're hearing them, you're listening to them, you're affirming for them, and just letting them know that you are there to help and that you want to be there to do whatever they need. That's the most important thing. And again, you know, just being vulnerable. Steve, you know, you use that word a few times. It's very, very important, because there's no one on this planet that's perfect. None of us are. And, you know, especially when it comes to a child, and being vulnerable and allowing yourself to put down those expectations, stereotypes, walls that you've built over your whole life, you know, and just being present with them, I think is so incredibly important.
Thank you for saying that. Jessica.
I would also add to Megan's wonderful statement, take care of yourself and find people that can support you, because you're going to have feelings and emotions that come up, and it's not going to be appropriate for you to project those onto your children. So take care of yourself and talk to your friends and seek support in Therapy Plug or groups, or read books. Just educate and self-care.
Thank you. And thank you for the grace with the repeated question. It was just an example of a mistake that a person could possibly make. Totally intentional. We have a question from Nicolette that I know we haven't heard yet. It says, Jessica, do you bring your own experience of your gender identity and expression into session with your clients to help promote rapport building and safety?
That's a great question, Nicolette. Yes, I do. I think I do my best to present really neutral. You know, my pronouns are she, her. My expression might look a different way. It might look the opposite on the next day. I have this form called the Gender Unicorn. It's not mine. I didn't create it, but it's this big picture of a bunch of little spectrums. So how your gender, oh, it's on the screen. Oh, it's on the screen. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. It's on the screen right now. You guys can see it. This is a great thing to keep in your classroom or at your home with your children, for you to do for yourself, but it helps you check in and see that you can fall anywhere on the spectrum that you'd like. So I do it with my clients a lot, and I do it myself with them to show them that on any given day, I could be expressing myself a little bit different than before. And just asking them what it's like working with me. You know, what's the experience like for you sitting here across from me, exploring your gender, because I'm here for it.
Thank you. I'm here for it too. I have a question coming up here on your screen in a moment from Vanessa. This question is from Megan. And this question like struck me as something that I might have heard in my house a lot growing up. It says, Megan, what do you tell parents that think that their child is going through a phase?
Let me just take a deep breath on that one. That one's hard. I have heard that. And, you know, I even get asked that question a lot just because my daughter transitioned at such a young age. You know, how do we not know that this is a phase? And what happens if they change back? Okay, so that's always another one that I get to. The reality is there's really no right answer to that because you don't know. We really don't know. And it's exactly like what Jessica was saying just now. You know, I could wake up on any given day too and feel one way or feel another. All I know is that I take it one day at a time. And I know that there were 3 things that I learned very, very early on when we did go to therapy, and we went collectively as a family. My girls went, you know, we really wanted to make sure that we understood how we could best support both of our girls, because I have a 10-year-old also. So making sure that she felt supported and understood and heard was just as important as my transgender daughter did. And there's 3 things that they will tell you right out of the gate. Are they insistent, consistent, and persistent? If they are, and kind of the guideline is around 6 months. So for example, with my younger daughter, you know, for at least a 6-month stretch, she was saying, I am a girl. I am a girl. And she was not wavering from that. And therefore, at that point, after about those 6 months, that's when you go, okay, all right. And during that process, you know, making sure that you are honoring those pronouns, honoring the name change. We did a name change for her, which, you know, as a mom, that was a very, I don't want to use the word difficult because it's been such a beautiful experience for us, but that's hard as a parent. You know, you birth this child, you have these ideas and thoughts in your head of what life is going to be like, and it can very quickly change, you know, not just with gender, with anything in life, right? So, you know, the question of how do you know, or what if it's a phase? The answer I give is I'm going to love my child unconditionally, regardless of if things change or if they don't. But what I know today and what I've known for the last almost 2 years now is that this is who she is. And I love her and I respect her. And that's the best I can do as a parent.
That's everything. Remy, I see you want to comment.
Something, I think I read this somewhere, but it's going off of the phases. So the moon goes through phases, but it's always the moon. It is always the moon. So with your child or your friend or your, I don't know, sibling, they may go through phases or they may stay the same, but no matter how they change, they are always that person. They are always your friend. They are always your kid. They are always your sibling. They will always be that person.
I see snaps everywhere. I see hands. Steve, add to that, please.
One, Remy, are you like 30? You're so wise. Oh my gosh. The thing you're saying, I'm like, that's so eloquently put. I never talk like that. I gotta take your class. My goodness. You know, I can't help but, you know, Megan, listening to you speak, I can't help but think how fortunate your daughter is to have you be your daughter. And as a teacher, and I can't help but think about my students, or anyone's students, just kids in general, who are going through those same having those same experiences and asking themselves those same questions, and those parents might not be as great as you are. And it kind of gets and it kind of goes back to what we're talking about before. I think Alex was touching on this, just having other safe spaces where kids can learn and grow and not be afraid to ask questions and express themselves. And you know, for this very reason, right? I mean, a kid doesn't decide who their parents are, or who, you know, who's raising them. I mean, and that's kind of, I mean, that's kind of what school is, right? It's that line. I mean, it's part of what school is. It's that line in the sand that says, hey, we're going to, you know, regardless of how you were raised or brought up, we're going to create these spaces for you to, these safe spaces to learn and to grow in. And I think that you know, it's detrimental that we have these in place in I don't know, in every school. I mean, maybe I'm not sure. I mean, this is, I don't know. Now we're going into starting a whole other conversation, I guess, just about, you know, schools, school's role in what we're discussing. But yeah, I mean, again, Megan, oh man, your kids are lucky, very, very lucky to have you.
Thank you. You might have seen Alex go and come back. Alex lost a Wi-Fi, but we are lucky that they figured out a solution. I don't know that we've well, first, I see a comment from Vanessa Alva, and it just says, you are amazing, Alex. You and Remy are change makers, so humble and resilient. Thank you for being so vulnerable with us tonight. And I think that that's a sentiment I want to also mirror and acknowledge that I feel gratitude for all of you. And I feel like all of you are such important figures. Somebody said earlier that it only took one person, the purple boa, it only took one person to be that light and to be that positive reinforcement and that positive change. And so you all are all that light. Thank you. As Alex reconnects with audio, I see them again. Hi, Alex. I want to open it up to all of our panelists for a final thought or word. We're approaching already 7:30. I could talk to you all forever. A final thought or word or resource. We'll have a slide with a bunch of resources in it, but don't go anywhere, because at the very end of today's live stream, Alex and Remy will perform their piece again now that we've sat with this discussion and see how it hits different, how it sounds different, how it sounds the same. Megan, you are the first on my screen, which means I'm going to throw it to you first.
Awesome. Final thoughts. So I think that regardless of, if you learned anything, if anything kind of just went straight over your head, if you, got some great notes or you have further questions, I think it's safe to say that, there's a lot of information out there. Be wary of where you get the information from. It can be muddled, so to speak, but just know that there are plenty of us out there in the community that do want to help. And in this process of the last 2 years, have met some of the most incredible people I've ever known in my life. And, working together and coming together, I am so hopeful meeting with and talking with people like yourselves this evening, and then also the students that I've met that are part of our subcommittee within Unity Conejo. They are such incredible humans, and they have so much to give and so much information to provide. And I'm very hopeful as a parent for our students, and my girls in particular, coming up through, the next 10 years plus of their schooling, to know that, the future is looking a little brighter. And I am here for anyone. If anyone has questions or wants to get in touch, I'd love to. And I really just appreciate everyone being here tonight.
Thank you, Megan. Steve.
I would say there's still so much work that needs to be done. I mean, there's so much work that needs to be done. I mean, we could sit here talking for hours about just just gender stereotypes in school, and how schools can do things different, and what kind of professional development is needed for teachers, and so on and so on and so on. We could go on forever. There's so much work that needs to be done. But through all of that work, I mean, just oh my God, just be kind to people, and you're never, don't be afraid just of don't be afraid of this subject matter, what we're discussing today, gender stereotypes and inclusivity, etc. Don't be afraid of these conversations. Have them. I think that you find 9 times out of 10 the people that you're most scared of hurting are, or most fearful of judgment are the people who are most open and thoughtful and loving where this is concerned. And also just get involved. Just get involved as much as you can. Get involved and let your voices be heard. And get out there and fight the good fight.
Thank you. I like that you said be kind. I think all the time, Pat Oswalt is a comedian I like, and he said, everything is chaos, be kind. And I think of that almost every day. Jessica, can I ask you for your final thoughts, statements, words?
I was just reflecting on all the things I want to say and just how wonderful this was. But I think don't be afraid to be different, and be patient with yourself. That's it.
That's wonderful. Don't be afraid to be different. Remy, my poet.
I think first I want to thank all of these panelists. I very much enjoyed hearing your different perspectives, and I'm very thankful for you and how, I don't know, you've given me so much courage to be who I am. And I loved watching how my poem has reflected and affected each and every one of you. And to the audience watching this, be who you are, because who you are is who you are. It's just who you are. And don't ever let someone tell you different.
Well said. Alex, do we have you? We don't have Alex. Then let's end tonight with a reading, Remy. We will miss painfully the harp, but Alex is having Wi-Fi issues, and I do think it's important that we all hear it again and we sit with it again before we send everybody out into this rainy Thursday night. Are you ready to give us another read?
Yes.
Ah, thank you.
Okay. Stereotypes. All of my life, I've worn dresses to any fancy event. I've been told how I sit isn't ladylike. All of my life, I've tried to fit into the gender stereotypes of our society. One day, I decided to stop. In 3rd grade, I finally realized how uncomfortable I felt in a dress. I now try to wear clothes that make me feel comfortable. I reject the color pink because it reminds me that for some strange reason, colors are gendered. I now sit however I want and go out of my way to make sure it's not ladylike. I now do whatever I can to make sure I don't fit in the box that a gender stereotype put me in. Though I may not always stay outside of the box, I try my best. With how much our society has grown, I hope that someday a boy will wear pink and everyone will be okay with it. I hope that someday a little girl will never be told that she can't do something just because she's a girl. Now think about it. Are gender stereotypes really that important?
And that's a wrap, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our BRITE staff, all of our panelists. We're seeing the snaps. Thank you, Steve, Jessica, Remy, Mitch, Renee, Megan, everybody behind the scenes, Alex, who we miss so bad right now. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with BRITE Connections next month. Have a safe and fantastic evening. Bye, everybody.